Hello, students, and welcome to poem number 3A, How to Tell Wild Animals, written by the poetess Carolyn Wells. Let us learn something about the poet. Carolyn Wells was an American writer who was famous for books based on mystery. Her famous works are The Sign of the Sphinx, The Jingle Book, and The Story of Betty. Now, this humorous poem suggests some dangerous ways to identify or tell wild animals. In the poem, the poet has explained the characteristics of various wild animals in a very funny way. She has used language in a way that it generates humor. She is introducing the reader to various kinds of wild animals like the Asian lion, the Bengal tiger, the bear, explaining each of the animals in a very funny way. Now, let us read the poem and then look at the explanation verse by verse. How to Tell Wild Animals by Carolyn Wells. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you're dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. Now here the poet is describing various wild animals. These animals are very dangerous and she has introduced them one by one in a very funny way. First of all, she tells us about an Asian lion. She says that if you are visiting the jungles of the east and there you see an animal which has tawny skin. Now tawny means brownish yellow in color, and he roars so loudly that you will die out of fear. This means that you have seen an Asian lion. Or if sometime when roaming round, a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you to learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Now, noble means belonging to an aristocratic or a high family, and discern is to have the ability to see or to understand, to realize something. Or if sometime, so here she says that in the next verse, the Bengal tiger, she has explained it's a very royal animal that at once attacks and kills a man. She says by adding humor that if this beautiful black striped animal kills you and eats you, then you must realize that you have surely met a Bengal tiger. And after this, let us go on to the next verse. If strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. 'Twill do no good to roar with pain, he'll only leap and leap again. Now, the third animal that we come across is the leopard. Carolyn Wells says that if you're going for a stroll, that means if you're taking a walk, uh, then you come across a beast, that means an animal whose hide means skin. Strolling is just going for a walk, and fourth is going ahead. And if on its skin you can see spots, then you must realize that it is a leopard. So she says that when you know that you have met a leopard, it's no good shouting with pain, because the leopard is only going to keep on jumping and jumping all over you. Moreover, she says that if you cry out in pain, it's no use, as he will not stop attacking. Then, if when you're walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it is a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess, he'll give you just one more caress. Now, yard is like the compound of your house, and caress is a soft, gentle touch. So, the poetess says that while you're walking around your outside your house and you meet a creature who gives you a nice big hug, make sure that it is a bear. And if you have any doubts, he'll just to do away with your doubts, he'll give you one more hug, one more gentle. It is by no means gentle. This is the way to recognize a bear, as it kills a person by hugging him. That's why it's called a bear hug. So she says that he will continue to hug us tightly, and that is the best way to recognize a bear. Then we go on to the next verse. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus. The crocodile you may always tell from the hyena thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they're crocodiles. Now, the poetess says, but how do you tell between different beasts of prey? For example, how do you tell between a crocodile and a hyena? Because distinguish is to be have the ability to tell between two different things. Beasts of prey are those wild animals that prey on other animals. A novice is somebody who has no experience, and the word nonplus means to be confused or surprised. So she says that in order to distinguish, how do you tell between two different beasts of prey, like the hyena or the crocodile? She says both of them show their teeth. The hyena also comes with a smile, and the crocodile also shows its teeth. But the only difference is that when you see tears running down the eyes, you will know it's a crocodile. Then the next verse says, the true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He hasn't any ears at all, and not a single wing. If there's nothing on the tree, 'tis the chameleon, you see. Now in the last word, the poetess says that the last animal she's talking about is a chameleon. She says that it's a lizard-like creature which doesn't have any ears and wings. It looks just like a lizard. Only this can help you differentiate between a lizard and a chameleon. She says that the chameleon has the quality of changing its color according to the color of the surface. So, in order to explain this, she says if the reader looks only at the tree and if he can see the tree, it means there's a chameleon sitting on it which has already turned its color to brown and it is blending in with its surroundings. And therefore, you must know it is a chameleon. So, dear children, as we can see that Carolyn Wells has spoken of so many different animals in the forest, in the jungle. She talks about the lion, then she talks about the tiger, then next she goes on to a leopard and then a bear. Then she tells us how to distinguish between a crocodile and a hyena. And last but not the least, she talks about a chameleon who can camouflage itself within its surroundings. So now let us look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. If we go on to the first verse, we will see the the last word in the first sentence is chance, and the last word in the second line is east. So the first one is A, then east will become B. The third line, chance and advance rhyme. So we have A, B, A, then east and beast rhyme. So it becomes A, B, A, B. And dine and lion, that is different from the other words. So it becomes C and C. So the rhyme scheme can be read as follows. A, B, A, B, C, C. And it's the same for all the other verses. Now let us have a look at the figures of speech. In the first line, if ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, in this line we have metonymy because the word jungles of the east represent countries of Asia where the lion is found. And if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, here again we have metonymy because the words large and tawny represent the lion. The third line, if he roars at you as you're dying, you'll know it's the Asian lion. Here we have repetition. The word you and you are repeated. Another figure of speech in this is onomatopoeia, because the sound roars. You can actually hear the roar of the lion. Then, in the second verse, with black stripes on a yellow ground, this is a metaphor. There's a comparison between the hide, that is the skin of the tiger, and the ground. Then, just notice if he eats you. Here, this is very ironical. This is irony. Why is it irony? Because the meaning is exactly opposite. If you're eaten by a tiger, how can you notice it? Because by then you will be dead. So it is very ironical. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Now, here we have uh, anastrophe. Now, anastrophe is inversion in the construction of the sentence for poetic effect. And we also have internal rhyme. Learn and discern. These are two words that rhyme in this sentence. If strolling forth, a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered. And so here we have a metaphor. There's an indirect comparison between the hide of a leopard and some dish that has been sprayed with pepper. That means when you sprinkle pepper on something, the skin of the leopard looks just like that. So it's a metaphor. And the comparison is all the dots on its body. Then there is also inversion in the construction of the sentence. Uh, that is anastrophe. As soon as he has leapt on you, you will know it is the leopard. Now, in this sentence, the word you and you is repeated for the sake of poetic effect. Then, we also have alliteration. The sound of the consonant H, that is he, has, and leapt and leopard, l and l. These two syllables are repeated for poetic effect. Then, let us go on to the next verse. 'Twill do you no good. No. 'Twill do you no to roar with pain. He'll only lep and lep again. Now, over here, it is internal rhyme. The rhyming words are pain and again. They are used in the same sentence. Then we also have the word lep and lep is repeated again. So that is repetition. 'Twill do you no good to roar with pain. This is a negation used to convey a positive meaning. That means it's useless to roar with pain. So this is litotes. Then the next one, if you're walking around your yard, you meet a creature there. Here you have the word you is repeated again. You and your yard. So that is repeated. And it's also alliteration. The sound of the consonant Y is repeated. You, your and yard. And when and walking. When and walking. So all this denotes alliteration. Who hugs you very, very hard. Be sure it's a bear. Now the word very, very is repeated. So it is repetition. And personification. The bear is given the human trait of hugging. So it is said to be, it's personifying the bear. So it's personification. Then the sound of the consonant H is repeated in the words hugs and heart. So her sound is repeated. Then, if you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. Now, here, the figure of speech in this is personification. The bear is given the human trait of caressing gently. Then, it is also the word you is repeated for poetic effect. Then, though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus. So in this there's an inversion in the construction of the sentence. Alliteration is also there in this sentence. The sound of the consonant N is repeated in the words novice and nonplus. N sound is repeated. Then the crocodile you may always tell from the hyena thus. So again we have inversion of this construction of the sentence, that is anastrophe, and alliteration because the sound of the consonant novice and nonplus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they're crocodiles. So personification. The hyena is given the human trait of smiling, and also crocodile is weeping. So they are personified. Then metaphor. There's an indirect comparison between the hyenas and crocodiles. And the point of comparison is weeping big tears. Then the antithesis is also opposite words like smile and weep are given in one sentence. Then in the last verse, the true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. So again, it's a metaphor. That means the chameleon is compared to a lizard. There's an indirect comparison. He hasn't any ears at all. A negation is used to convey the positive meaning that it is without ears. And ears stand for the chameleon. So it is also synecdoche. If there's nothing on the tree, it is the chameleon, you see. So here, there's nothing. So it's a negation is used to convey the positive meaning that a chameleon changes color in order to camouflage itself so that it remains unseen. The alliteration is the sound of the consonant th in there and the, in tree and so tt sound also, tree and tis. Then repetition, the word the is repeated for poetic effect. Now let us go on to the question answers of this poem. Does dine really rhyme with line? Can you say it in such a way that it does? The word dine does not really rhyme with line, but it can be made to rhyme if we speak it like without the G. So line and dine. Okay, line and dine. How does the poet suggest that you identify the lion and the tiger? When can you do so according to him? The word leapt and leap are not spelled correctly. But children, do you know something? That poets have poetic license and they can change words to suit the poem. They can make changes in the construction of the sentence. They can change the spellings of the words to suit the poem, and that is called poetic license. But you and I do not have it, so we have to spell all the words correctly in the question answers and during the exams. So the correct spellings are not L-E-P-T but L-E-A-P-T, and L-E-P no, not L-E-P lep but L-E-A-P leap. However, leapt has been used as a past participle of leap. The poet very funnily, humorously uses two words by missing out the A in order to tell you how quickly the leopard can jump. Then, do you know what a bear hug is? Is it a friendly and strong hug as they are thought to give when they attack you? Again, hyenas are thought to laugh and crocodiles to weep. Are there similar expressions and popular ideas about wild animals in your own language that you will have to find out if there are such lines in the Gujarati language? You will have to talk to your parents and ask them. Then look at the line, a novice might nonplus. How would you write this correctly? And why is the poet's incorrect line better in the poem? The correct form of the line is a novice might get nonplussed. The poet has used the incorrect form in order to maintain the rhythm of the poem by omitting words that do not hinder the meaning of the poem. And do you know what a bear hug is? Not really a hug. It is like, the bear is trying to crack all your ribs and trying to kill any person. Then, can you find other examples of poets taking liberties with language, either in English or any other language? Yes, there are plenty of examples. Then, much of the humor arises from the way language is used. Although ideas are funny as well, there are particular lines in the poem that you like. You must write them down when you write all these question and answers. So, thank you, students. Have a nice day.